On today's episode of Trading Fours, we talk to Jonny May, ragtime piano player from Disneyland, about ways to take any tune and play it in a variety of styles. Jonny, what's up, man?
What's up, Josh?
It's so good to see you. I have to share with this. It's been a couple years, but this is my favorite Jonny May moment of all time. You ready?
Okay,
Hang on, I gotta tee this up. I can't play it in front of you. I'll figure that out later.
That was pretty impressive.
You know what I'm talking about? You get the reference?
Absolutely. That was the Bird Box Challenge, wasn't it?
The Bird Box Blues Challenge. So for those of you who don't know Jonny, aren't in the community, there was a Netflix special, a couple years ago called Bird Box, where this, who was it? Who was the actress? But she walked around the whole movie with a blindfold on, right? Because you weren't allowed to see or you would die. And we have a little Facebook group with all of your students in it, right? So I put this challenge out. It said Bird Box Blues Challenge.
Yeah.
So you got to blindfold yourself and play through kind of the blues. And do you remember what you did back?
I think I did Lullaby of Birdland.
You did. And do you know that there's a little running joke inside the community that after you posted your Lullaby of Birdland, nobody dared follow it up. It ended the challenge.
Oh no, sorry. I'm a challenge killer.
So I have that video saved. It's really good to see you, Jonny. You know, you and I met a few years ago. I've been so grateful to be a student of yours for many years. A lot of people who maybe don't know you might know you as the Happy Birthday guy on YouTube. You've got a monstrous viral video of you playing Happy Birthday in, I don't know, do you know how many styles?
Oh gosh,
10?
7?
7?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like Broadway and ragtime and Latin rumba or something. It's really fun. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link down in the description so you can see it. But it's really fun. But you run an online community called Piano with Jonny with a whole bunch of students. But I've always thought of you as the master of different styles of music, taking one tune and turning it into a whole bunch of different styles. And so you started off kind of your career as the Disneyland piano player, right? Like on Main Street.
Right. Yeah. I was hired at age 18 to play ragtime piano at Disneyland. And it was amazing, man. It was so cool. It was like the dream job. I was still in high school, and my teacher called me up. He says, Jonny, we're short on piano players. You need to come audition now. So I came in like that week, and he got me like a private audition. And it was cool. I actually went into the park. He was playing at the park that day, and the audition was backstage. He said, hey, come into the park and practice before your audition. So I went to the Coat Corner piano, and he invited me up to come play a song. And normally he would just let me play one song, but it was weird this day. He said, no, keep playing more songs. Play another song. I ended up playing like 4 songs. And finally I turned around, and there was the hiring manager sitting right there. That was actually my audition. And I didn't know. And so he walked up, he said, you're hired. So.
That's amazing. I feel like this is like the modern equivalent of 1930s, like Harlem, old time piano music, right? Where these, like, you think of like Art Tatum, right? Sitting playing for 10, 12 hours every night. And he would, just to keep himself from getting bored, would play things in different styles and improvise and work as many like cool new techniques into everything he did.
Yeah.
So you got your 10,000 hours in, at the piano in Disneyland.
Absolutely. I actually credit Disneyland and my gigging as being one of the biggest reasons I can do what I do today. All the years, I put 9 years at Disney, but those years were spent creating those arrangements. And in fact, most of my arrangements, a lot of people don't know this, the ones I played at Disney were actually, it was an evolution of improvised arrangements. So I would, like, every time I'd sit down and play Cruella de Vil, I'd try something new, and if I liked something, I'd keep it. And so it really helped me not only become a better improviser, because you're sitting out there for, 7 hours playing ragtime and stride and boogie woogie, but I also developed a lot of my arranging skills through that process. So it was a great gig, and I really recommend. I know you have an audience of piano players that want to play. A lot of them want to play professionally. It's one of the best things that you can do is look for a gig, even if it's like busking, where you're just playing on the street. You will learn so much from playing live. You'll gain confidence playing for other people. You'll develop your arranging skills. You'll develop your repertoire because you'll get bored. Gigging was amazing. Disney was a fun gig.
I think you're underrated as a jazz player, though. Like, you're kind of known for the old Disney, the old school, the boogie woogie, the ragtime, the stride stuff. But you got some real jazz chops. Is there something you'd want to play for a more jazz audience?
Sure.
Something you could perform for us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of jazz.
I love it, man. This is so cool. It really cooks. Yeah, when I play Autumn Leaves, I learned it in like a two feel, right? Like a simple like. Right. So tell me, like, how would you take, let's say I took the Autumn Leaves, the two feel I just did, and I heard a little bit of walking bass that you did in the beginning. How would you make it like a four feel thing? Could you play a little bit of that again in a swing four?
Well, there's two ways I do a four feel. Okay. Well, actually, it's kind of three ways, but the first main way I do it is with a four walking bass line. So, right. So just walking, there's a lot of ways to walk bass lines, but the key is to get a bass note on every beat. So a real simple way for your students, and it kind of depends on their playing level. Where I always start students with is like a fifth deal. that's going to take it to a whole new level. Okay, just walking fifths on each chord. From there, I wouldn't get crazy with chord tones or anything. What I would do is start to incorporate a swing feel into that, you know, ba-dum-bum. That's going to be really critical to get it to more of a pro level, is getting that, we call them ghost notes.
Yeah, bringing the bass.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And then from there, once you can do fifths and you can swing it, like those are the first pillars, then I would start exploring with some different patterns, you know, you know, walking. You know, that's cool, but that starts to get kind of complicated because sometimes the bass notes aren't the same distance and you got to modify it a little bit. But yeah, fifths are where it's at. You can also walk, you know. I'm not a big fan of that. To me, it's a little vanilla to walk the chord tones. So yeah, fifths. And then, so that's the first one. The second one is four on the floor. Okay, that's going to have a nice strong. The key with four on the floor, at least the way I play it, is you want to get a chord on each beat. It's different than a walking bass line, you know, where you might be filling with some chords in the middle. With the four on the floor, you're trying to get a chord on each beat with the melody. It's just gonna, it's like, to me, I'm trying to emulate a guitar. Chunk, chunk,
Yeah, it's
chunk,
like a Freddie
chunk,
Green.
chunk. Yeah, it's old
Like
school, yeah, old school jazz kind of guitar thing. So I really gravitate to those two when I'm doing swing for a four feel. And then the other, it's not really a four feel, it's more of a two feel, would be the stride. Boom, chick, boom, chick. And I kind of did that a little bit in my playing. Again, that's not a four feel because you're putting a chord on beats 2 and 4. But to me as a jazz pianist, you know, when I'm playing swing, I generally sit in those three, I use those techniques, recycle them between a lot of my arrangements.
Yeah, when you were doing the walking bass, I heard like, it's kind of what they call a third hand technique, right? Where your left hand's responsible for being the bass player. It's the rhythm section. Your right hand's got the melody, but it's still got to do like double duty in the middle of the piano
Right.
and flesh out those chords. But when you go to the like Freddie Green style, the four on the floor comping, all of a sudden your left hand is taking care of those chords. And I find that to be kind of tricky. You would think that once you've learned one, you could transition to the other by getting the feel right. But actually, it's a pretty different technique to cover the chords in the middle with different hands.
Oh man, it's one of the hardest things because, you know, we're taught, you know, we're taught groove, which is bass, we're taught melody, and then chords, and you're like, okay, I've got two hands, and what if I want to play the melody up here? And this is where it gets really tricky, is you don't want the hands to be too far apart. You don't want to go, you know, and then just have this like open gap in the middle. And so this is where it becomes really challenging for students when you're voice leading and you're thinking about melody and chords. You have to keep a balance. Jeremy Siskin, I know you did an interview with him. He talks a lot about this. But you know, when I'm trying to grab the chords, I generally keep the melody really low. You know, even that. You know, if you look at what I'm playing, I'm really trying to keep the chords together. If I want to play high, you know, that's where I go into stride, because now I got to jump to the chords. So you really got to be mindful of this. I do hear a lot of jazz students make, in my opinion, the mistake of putting the melody too high, and then there's nothing in the middle, or they're trying to jump too far. So just a little tip for your students. I know you got a lot of jazz students.
Yeah, and when you get into the more advanced stride stuff, you're kind of combining both, right? You're trying to do the stride, but you're also trying to invent new melody lines in your left hand and walk larger intervals like tenths and elevenths and stuff, where you now have to cover the melody, cover the chords with your right hand while you're trying to do all that.
Oh man, yeah.
Stuff.
Stride is the hardest style of jazz. The greatest jazz musicians of all time, you know, Earl Father Hines and James P. Johnson and Teddy Wilson, you know, all these guys were virtuosic jazz musicians, but they were masters of harmony. And to me, stride piano encompasses kind of the most rich approach to jazz, where I think a lot of musicians tend to, you know, we play chords like, you know, these cool rootless voicings, you know, you solo, but to be able to get the bass, the chord, and the melody with all the harmony and the improvisation, it really sounds like an orchestra. That's, to me, the pinnacle, I would say, of jazz piano playing. And stride is not an old style. There's certainly a lot of modern musicians playing stride with modern harmonies. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, stride is cool. Getting those tenths, man, that's the hardest part. Walking those tenths is such a hard thing, man.
I was born with big hands, so my mom fertilized me a lot, so like it's tricky. And I heard a lot of like diminished passing chords and stuff for chromatic stuff. Like stride is like there's just so much to do there. What would you do if we took the time out of it? Let's say we did like a rubato jazz ballad version of it where it wasn't so strict on the time.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of ways to do it. I would start a little bit lower on the keys. I do stuff like that where you give a lot of gaps between the phrasing. Another thing I try to do with rubato is I try to move phrases along. You really want like a really hard contrast between. So what I try to do is like starting the phrase dum, da, dum. So like you want those little moments to appreciate the notes of the melody, leaving a lot of gaps. Like just being very free with the sense of time.
More extensions.
Sure, yeah, you have time to appreciate. Yeah, when you're swinging. I mean, you could throw the rich chords in, but with this style, you can get chords like that and sit on it, and so that's another thing I'd really encourage your students watching this is take time to appreciate chords. Da, 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 da. Like right there, ba da da dum. I lifted the pedal there to expose that line.
Yeah, you could put all that tension and release back in, right? That where stride, you just got to keep going with the chords, just keep chugging along. But here you can insert all of those tension chords and resolve them and suspend them, and yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. You want to have this at your disposal, and you can do this in arrangement where you start with rubato, and then like sometimes I'll start that way, and then I'll move into a swing. And so I think creating a really dynamic arrangement, especially being a solo jazz pianist, is you want to have both at your disposal. So yeah, you want, I think pianists make the mistake of not appreciating harmony enough of the time. We want to get those cool grooves, and we want to get the cool fills and whatnot, but like a tune like that is so rich, and there's so much you can do, especially if you're working out the arrangement. But just if you have a basic sense of chords, just going for a bigger C minor chord here, you can really get some gorgeous colors. Like these chords, these upper structures. I wouldn't be grabbing these if I was doing stride, or it wouldn't quite sound this lush. You know what I mean? It would be more of a punch or something. Right. So.
It's like I feel like there's all these stylistic trademarks of different types of players, right? That bring those kind of things in. If you listen to modern players play, you hear them kind of switch. Like they're not copying what those other player formers were doing, but they're taking inspiration from all these different techniques and trying to work them in, stuff like that.
Right, exactly. I think modern jazz is really just the culmination of all the jazz that's come before us. It's amazing. If you listen to a lot of the modern guys, Jacob Collier, and they really are incredible. They're geniuses. But if you listen to what they're playing, they're honestly rehashing so much from what's already come. In many ways, they're just mixing it in a new way. And then they can call it their own. And to me, that's kind of really what jazz is. I think for every pianist watching this is, if you can take Oscar Peterson and you can take Keith Jarrett and you can take McCoy Tyner and George Shearing and these guys, and you can find a way to blend them, you will actually have created something brand new, which is a weird thing to say, but it is new, and so you can call it your own. I mean, all the stuff I play is, I don't think I've made up really anything. I haven't invented any new sort of harmonic systems, but I blend it in a unique way, and I can call that my own. So
that's kind of the DNA of jazz, right? Is that we have a book of standards that all the greats played from the same book, if you will. So I heard in your solo, I think I heard a little bit of a blues line. How would you work in a blues line on top of Autumn Leaves?
You didn't hear a blues line. You heard a ton of blues lines, and I'm one of those guys that does not shy away from blues. I throw blues in everything. So yeah, blues is an interesting thing. A lot of students think a blues is a shuffle. They think, oh, blues, right? That's just one very small iteration of the blues. When something is bluesy, they could be referring to the blues shuffle. They could be referring to the 12-bar blues form. Or they could be referring to adding slide notes to the arrangement. And so when I take an arrangement like this, it's not a 12-bar blues form. And it's swing, so you could think of it maybe as a shuffle. But what will instantly make it sound bluesy is by sliding a lot of the notes. So let me play an example here of how I might make this bluesy. Right?
So you're making more like blues stylistic treatments instead of thinking like blues scale, because Autumn Leaves it's moving by fives, right? It's circle of fifths diatonically anyway, and so you can't, like when you're thinking like a normal 12-bar blues, where you're thinking 1-4-5 or maybe a turnaround or a secondary dominant or something. You can play the same blues scale over the whole changes, right? Is that what you're doing here? Are you thinking in terms of scale? Like you're thinking, oh, I'm in G minor, so I'm going to play a G minor blues over the whole thing?
Perfect. You got it. You nailed it on the head. So when you're playing blues on a tune like this, if you want to incorporate blues in a traditional swing tune, this is not a blues tune, okay? But you can stylize any song if you know the formula, and that's what we think about. But yeah, to your point, I wasn't bluesifying it at first. I was, I'm walking a bass line, I got the melody. Where it becomes bluesy is in the fills, okay? That's all blues, okay? So what am I doing? How am I making it bluesy? Well, you have to ask yourself one extremely important question. Students oftentimes fail to answer this basic question, but what key am I in? What key am I in, okay? Autumn Leaves, a lot of students don't realize, if you're playing it a G minor,
it starts on the 4.
Starts on the 4. Well, starts on the 2 actually of, depending on how you define it, but it's a 2-5-1 in B flat. We're in B flat, and so you can play a B flat blues on basically all of the chords that come from B flat. So the autumn leaves drift by my window. Autumn leaves. You got to get that melody in there, but if you know the underlying key you're in, then you can play essentially I call it the parent scale, because all of these chords, C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, they all come from B flat major. So therefore this parent scale works over all of these chords. And then when you go, the autumn leaves of red and gold, we're in G minor, okay? And so here you can use G minor blues. Right? And so to me, and I think every guy is different. maybe another blues pianist would approach this differently, but it's how I like to incorporate blues into traditional swing tunes or big band tunes that are not meant to be bluesy.
So let's go back to Disneyland. How would you play it like on Ragtime USA Main Street?
Oh goodness, like for real? All right, you ready for this? I'm actually improvising this. I've never played Autumn Leaves and Ragtime, and I cannot believe you just challenged me. But I'm gonna do it. Anyway, not perfect by any means, but it's cool with ragtime. Certainly you could work it out, but what I was basically attempting to do it's kind of a weird tune to do it on, but you want to play these rag rolls. You know, that's what makes ragtime.
Yeah, it's straight. We're not swung anymore, right? We left the land of swing. We've gone straight, but you've gone to syncopation in the right hand. And I'm not sure what Johnny Mercer would think of this.
Oh, he would be rolling in his grave right now if he heard this. But yeah, ragtime is this boom chick left hand, you know. And of course, there's things you can do little walk-ups and stuff, obviously, if you worked out the arrangement. But yeah, ragtime is a novelty piano style. You know, it was famous in the turn of the century, and it actually had a revival in the 70s with the Sting. That score was a ragtime score. But I want to stay focused on the point, which is that this is the rag rolls, you know. And so it's kind of fun to, if you want to get that old-timey sound, that's kind of like a little formula. And there's like different rag rolls. You have like a forward roll, you have a reverse roll, you have a triplet roll, an eighth note roll, and you can like mix them. Stuff like that to kind of make it interesting.
I feel like this is one of the styles where you rely a lot on muscle memory and patterns and like those rag rolls, right? Things that are just ingrained into your fingers from, again, 10,000 hours at Disneyland.
Indeed, yeah. Ragtime is one of those funny things that comes really easily to me, and it's just literally just because I sat there for 7 hours playing ragtime, and I would get bored, and people would say, "Hey, play Coldplay," and so I'm like, see if my boss is walking by hearing me play Coldplay, and then I would just. And so the point being, you can make any song in ragtime. So that was part of the fun of that gig. Was like, oh, how do I take Led Zeppelin and play it in ragtime?
And there's some funky ones out there. Didn't you do this is Latin, right? You did a Baby One More Time, Britney Spears in Latin, if I remember right.
I did, yeah. Anyway, I haven't played that arrangement in a while, but that was a fun one.
It's wild, man. But it's okay. So let's talk about what you just did there, right? So you put like a son montuno kind of chromatic moving in the right hand, right, to flesh out the.
Yeah, Latin is an interesting animal. There's a lot of different Latin styles, but that's a montuno. And there's all kinds of montunos. You're going to hear this a ton in Latin music. So I took that idea and I used this very common Latin bass line here. It's very simple. 1 and 2 and 3. hear this in a lot of Latin music, and so kind of fused it together. And I do that in a lot of tunes, like Despacito, that kind of has a Latin flavor. And I actually do the same thing on that. It's really funny. But you can take the exact same formula. You know that tune, Despacito? Let's see. Right? But you got those montunos in there, you got that driving left hand, and it works so well. Another thing that's cool when I'm stylizing Latin like that, it's nice to go from a bass line to a root chord, and it just changes it up. I'm actually playing the same rhythm. But I'm putting a chord on that second note instead of a bass note. So these are all formulas that I use. I know a lot of the theme of this conversation is styles, and so it's important your students watching, if they want to play styles, you have to understand the formula. There's a driving formula, and so that's my trick. For this particular bass line, you want to use both of these, and you'll be amazed at what kind of arrangements you can come up with from those two ideas.
Yeah, that's great. So let's bring it home. How would you do the Autumn Leaves in a Latin son montuno?
Oh, goodness. In that style? Change it up a little bit on the bass line. Obviously, I'm improvising this. I've never done it this way, but so a bossa nova. That's one of my favorites to play, and it works so well for jazz standards. So for me, if I'm doing something as a bossa, there's your bossa bass line. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. It's just root 5. 1, 2, 5. And then in the right hand, it's a little trickier, but the bossa rhythm, if I'm accompanying, it's tricky. It's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and if you can do that, it
kind of rolls.
It has a rolling feel. It's a 2-bar feel. It's not a 1-measure feel. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and then it resets there. And then you can do the same thing with that style. If you want to kind of break it out. You're basically modeling it after, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Playing the same rhythm as that bass line, but you're jumping root to chord. And so that's going to be really key. Whenever I teach styles, whether it's swing, like jazz swing or bossa nova or samba or whatever, you want to always have at least two approaches. One is bass line, I call it closed position playing, everything's a little closer together, or I call open position. Right, and they just have two different sounds, so that's how I characterize both of those.
So you talk about all these style formulas, you know a lot of them, and I don't think there's anything you've talked about tonight that you don't go into extreme detail teaching on Piano with Jonny.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. Piano with Jonny is where we geek out about all this stuff, and we really dive deep. We have over 1,000 lessons to date, And Piano with Jonny, yeah, it really is where I really go into depth sharing my knowledge of all the styles I play, of improvisation. And so it's cool. I really feel like every jazz pianist has their own journey, and I think what sets my journey apart is I've played a lot of styles. Playing at Disneyland, I was playing ragtime and stride and boogie woogie and blues, honky tonk piano, and even some country western piano. And then playing jazz gigs, I was playing swing music and bebop, and I was playing, basically big band music. And so, and then pop. I did a lot of pop. And so Piano with Jonny is just basically where you can learn all of these styles, at least 15 different styles of piano. So just in the jazz realm, jazz swing, bossa nova, jazz ballads, blues, we've got a whole section on that, pop piano, contemporary piano, funk, gospel. We talk about smooth jazz, we talk about R&B, and we teach a lot of improv. I think students who come to Piano with Jonny, they're students who want to create their own music, they want freedom at the piano, they don't want to be limited by sheet music. And so if you watch almost any Piano with Jonny course, we almost always start with a lead sheet. We build that lead sheet into arrangement. We talk about the process. So the goal is to empower the students to where they can do that. They can develop their own lead sheets. We talk about how to improvise over those tunes. And then we really try to appeal to all playing levels. So we have beginner, intermediate courses, intermediate, advanced courses. So there's courses for everyone. If you like jazz piano, and we also have a great community. That's probably the best part of Piano with Jonny is I think it's a rock star community. And I mean, you're part of it, Josh. And to me, I can't imagine a place that's more supportive. And so that's pretty big in the platform.
It really is an amazing community, especially with as many people as are in there. I mean, you talked about people taking the formulas and making their own arrangements off of those. These are not people just learning kind of by rote copying your arrangements, but they're actually taking the formula and building their own arrangements on top of it. And there are videos that go up in that community every day of people doing just that.
What you said is probably one of the most important things that your students who are following you here can do is listen. Listen and absorb music. You'll discover what you love. You'll discover what you don't really like, and you'll meld those in a very unique way. If you, all of you guys watching, if you want to follow my music and you enjoy the styles I play, you can follow me. Probably the best place is on YouTube. I have a channel called Jonny May, JONNYMAY. That's where you can listen to all my arrangements, all my improvisations, and then I teach basically for free. We have another YouTube channel called pianowithjonny.com, Piano with Jonny on YouTube. And that's where we put up, currently we do a weekly 10-minute free lesson video. You can learn a lot of these styles, a lot of the tricks that I teach there.
Thank you so much for coming on, man, and sharing all of those talents. We're recording this on New Year's Eve, 2020, the last day of 2020, finally. I wish you a happy and prosperous 2021. Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It was fun.
Right.